Hey guys, my name is Shai, and this video is about emotional processing for the Pisces moon, for your natal moon in Pisces. This may resonate for you as well if you have your moon in the 12th house or if you've got Neptune involved somehow with your lunar placement. So, I come to this video with a little bit of trepidation because honestly, who is qualified to talk about natal moon in Pisces other than you Pisces moons yourselves, right? I feel like this is one of the most profound, most deep, and most complex placements, and that anyone who doesn't live with this placement day in and day out probably never going to fully understand the experience because Pisces, this energy, yes, you go online and you can look at some of the superficial stereotypes of Pisces about how it's about art and beauty and water and flowing and emotions and spirituality and creativity. And it is all of those things, right? It's all of those things, but that is barely scratching the surface. It is barely scratching the surface. Really, Pisces is, I can't say it's really anything, but to take that explanation a little further, I would talk about how Pisces is the culmination of all of the other energies, right? It's the 12th sign, it is the culminative sign, it is that everything, you roll it all up and you add it all up and you get Pisces. In an alternative perspective, though, you could also say that Pisces is the original energy, the first energy, the beginning, and that all things flow out from Pisces, and that as you go farther and farther and farther from the Piscean energy, you're drilling down, 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 more and more and more into the individual all the way until Aries. So you can look at it in both directions, in both perspectives, and that is so much about what Pisces people, right? People with a Pisces moon, that is what you are best at is, or, one of the many things that you're exceptionally good at is seeing everything from so many multiple perspectives, right? So many multiple perspectives to the point where it's infinite, it's eternal, it is the culmination of all emotion, the culmination of all feeling. It is seeing everyone's perspective, everyone's side, and knowing that everything is part of the greater whole. This is an extremely holistic, culminative placement. And since this is in your moon, this is in your lunar energy, your internal energy, that means that inside of yourself, there's a lot going on in there. It's almost like the entire collective unconsciousness has been dissolved inside of you and you kind of lost in the ocean of emotion, right? The ocean of emotion, the ocean of emotion. And it's an eternal ocean, right? There are tides in the ocean, there are currents in the ocean, there are creatures swimming around in the ocean. The ocean can be calmed. It can also rage with fierce and violent storms, but always and eternally and infinitely, it is the ocean of emotion, flowing forever, right? Under the influence of the moon, right? Controlling those or influencing those tides. So, what do you do with that ocean, right? What do you do with it? And right there, that question, what do you do with it? That is not a Pisces question. The question of what am I supposed to do with it, that's coming from somewhere else, right? The mind, the ego, some other energies you have, right? Trying to think, what do I do with it? Well, Pisces isn't really about that because what can you do with the ocean? If your inner landscape is like the ocean, what could you possibly do with that? You're not really going to do anything with it, right? The ocean simply is. It moves, it flows, and it continues to exist exactly as it is. So, in terms of your emotional processing, it's really, again, emotional processing, that word right there, processing. It's not really what Pisces is about, although it is, right? It's just not in the way that you might think. So your emotional processing is not, unlike some of the other moon signs, right? It is not something you're meant to figure out. It is not something you're ever really going to fully understand intellectually. You might come into insights and wisdom on it, but in terms of a full, complete intellectual systematic understanding of the emotional processing of a Pisces moon, it's never going to be, written with perfect clarity, and it's not going to be perfectly explained. But you probably have some kind of comfort level with that, because Pisces moon knows and understands that certain things will never really be explained and cannot ever really be explained. And they just need to be kind of felt and experienced. So right away, you might entertain certain schools of thought that help you with your emotions. You might try them on for size. You might do them sometimes, and they might be useful to you, because with Pisces, it's never just one thing, right? Never just one thing. So all of the perspectives, you could almost watch this entire series of videos, right? All the emotional processing for all the moon signs, there's probably little nuggets in there that will sometimes apply to you every once in a while, right? Just absorbing it all, absorbing it all. Pisces moon absorbs everything, and then it just sifts around into the ocean. And we're going to talk more about what happens once everything goes into the ocean, when it's absorbed into the ocean. Where does it go? What happens there? But first, let me just finish this thought on how you as a Pisces moon, you are incredibly, well, I mean, to say you're emotionally sensitive is the understatement of eternity, right? You are the most sensitive. You are the most like exquisitely sensitive in your emotional landscape, and you absorb everything that you come into contact with. And since it's in your moon, you absorb it deep inside of yourself. And I will say there is an interesting thing that can happen with Pisces moon is you can almost end up feeling outside of yourself to an extent. And this will vary based on the person, right? Nothing is ever universal. It's always multiple variations of experience. But Pisces moons can have different experiences of perhaps feeling outside of the self, perhaps being confused about what the self even means. What does it mean to say, I feel like myself, to say, I know myself? Different confusions you might have about your own identity. And again, different per individual, but that is, I have to at least mention that, right? That if you are a Pisces moon and you have some kind of confusion sometimes about the self, the individual, or the identity as that applies to you as a human being, that's completely understandable, because your inner self, your inner sanctum, your lunar energy is completely tuned into the collective unconscious. So you guys are on a different level of experience here. And that's why I say I feel fairly unqualified to talk about this, and all I can do here is offer my perspective on it. But again, I know that Pisces moons, you guys are always appreciative of somebody else's perspective, because you absorb it all together and you ultimately create a perspective that is beyond that of any one individual, right? The collective perspective inside of yourself is what you have, is what you're creating, is what you're building. So let me return to the emotional processing, right? There is an analogy we can use here. If we keep thinking about the ocean, you know how everything on earth ultimately returns to the ocean, right? It all returns to the ocean. All of the water cycles down through the earth, right? And down the rivers, and it eventually ends up in the ocean. And that includes anything that might be dissolved in the water, right? The leaves and the sticks and the plastic and the dead fish and the living fish and anything, everything goes into the ocean, right? Anything we flush down the toilet, including medications, all of that, right? Any chemicals, it all ends up in the ocean. You guys know about this. You get the picture, right? Everything returns to the ocean. The good, the bad, the neutral, the ugly, the beautiful, all of it goes into the ocean. And then the ocean has a way of processing everything that ends up in the ocean. And this is incredibly complex. And if you want to really go deep with this analogy, you might want to watch a documentary on the ocean, or a series of documentaries on the ocean, something like the BBC's Blue Planet, right? They talk about all of the layers of the ocean, because there's so much to this analogy. You have the upper levels of the ocean where there is tons of life, and got to think of all of the creatures in the ocean, your own inner landscape. You're not just the ocean, you're also all of the beings that live inside of the ocean, all of the fish and the sharks and the whales and the squid and the eels and all of it, right? All of it, the turtles, you're all that is inclusive inside of your oceanic inner space. And there's all kinds of activity. And as you go down into the deeper layers of the ocean, right, the light begins to fade as you get deeper and deeper and deeper into that oceanic Piscean space. At the top of the ocean, right, where there's waves and turbulence and all kinds of creatures, it is light and bright because you are so close to the sun still. But as you go deeper and deeper and deeper into the twilight zone of the ocean and then into the abyssal zone of the ocean, eventually the light fades completely. And down there on the ocean floor, there's a lot less life down there. There's a lot less life down there in the darkness and in the intense oppressive pressure, right? Imagine how much pressure there is at the bottom of the ocean because that water has been compressed and it is so dense. There's so much pressure down there in the blackness, the abyssal zone. Okay. And that's where everything ultimately ends up, right? If you watch a documentary, they send robots down there and you can see footage of all of the particulate, all of the creatures that have died, everything that has ever been thrown into the ocean, the carcasses of whales. It's all been dissolving. It's been broken down by different animals that are, feeding on it in the cycle of life and death. And everything kind of snows and drips and trickles down to the bottom of the ocean. That's where everything goes until eventually it hits bedrock. It hits the ocean floor. And then there's even life inside of the ocean floor. So, there is so much to be explored, and we could spend hours honestly talking about the ecosystem of the ocean and the layers of the ocean and the creatures that live there and how all of this is a really profound mechanism for how the earth itself breaks down and recycles everything, right? Everything goes into the ocean. And through this long, and it might take years, right? Imagine a shipwreck or a whale carcass, right? These are things that can easily, that all the time, right? They all the time end up in the ocean. A shipwreck will eventually, it might take centuries, but eventually that shipwreck, even if it's made of plastic and steel and glass, it will eventually, after the passage of enough time, be completely broken down. Same thing with the carcass of a whale. It might take a year or 2 years, I think, for the bones to be completely cleaned away until there is nothing left. Everything can be dissolved in the ocean, and this is how the earth dissolves and breaks down and recycles everything. It's in that oceanic process. So this is how your emotional processing works, right? The thing with Pisces placements is that the emotions of a Pisces placement, so in this case, your Pisces moon, the emotions can seem to last forever, right? They can seem to just go on and on and on and on. And you can wonder, why am I still feeling this? Why does this still come back around one more time? Why is it still this? Why can't I move on from this? Why can't I let this go? It's because it is in the naturally long, drawn out process of being digested and dissolved by the ocean, the oceanic processes of your Pisces moon, okay, of your Pisces moon. But do not fear. I am not saying that a Pisces moon is condemned, so to speak, to this very long, slow, organic, natural process. That is one of the main ways that the Pisces moon breaks down and processes emotions, by simply the length of time and by you doing your whole emotional ecosystem and just by living your life. All of your emotions will eventually be processed and broken down and dissolved and recycled, and then you will be refreshed and renewed. But what if you don't want to wait that long? What if you don't have centuries to feel something out, right? What if you don't want to wait for the passage of time and the workings of the ocean to dissolve some kind of emotion or some kind of energy? That is when you want to tune into something that I don't feel is discussed enough with Pisces, but it is something that is very close to my heart, and I think about it a lot, and I talk about it sometimes. It's a little hard to convey, but I talk about the Pisces potential for transcendence. Okay, the Pisces potential for transcendence. And it's almost the opposite perspective here. On the one hand, you have the Pisces method of dissolution, the long, slow process of the oceanic dissolution. That's when you sink to the depths, right? It's by sinking into the depths of the ocean. What if you go in the other direction? What if you point yourself up towards the light? What if you rise up and find that higher perspective, that higher vantage point? What if you rise up and point yourself towards the sun or to source, right? Point yourself towards your source and focus on instantaneous transcendence. This is the energy of a miracle. This is the energy of things suddenly being different than they were. It is having transcended everything that you were just in. It is rising up. Similar in some respects to like a scorpionic transformation, but that is more of a kind of, there is a process to transformation. When I'm saying transcendence, I mean that. You transcend. It is the moment of enlightenment, okay? We're talking about enlightenment. We're talking about just poof, rising up into your moment of transcendence. And of course, you could think about reaching enlightenment, right? Reaching that state of nirvana. Yes. But this is one of those things, it can't really be explained, guys. It can't really be explained. I could share experiences that I have because I have a Pisces North node. So it's not the same as having a Pisces moon, but I have been walking my Pisces North node path, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about the Piscean path. And when you're walking your North node path, you end up learning a lot about a certain energy, right? So I feel like from the outsider's perspective, I've spent a lot of time learning about the the lower potentials of Pisces, absolutely, sinking to the bottom of the abyss. Once I got tired of that, I tried tuning into the higher frequencies of Pisces, and that's when the real magic happens. That's where you find that transcendence. It's also, I haven't really found a good way to describe it, but I only talk about it because I have experienced it, okay? Because I have experienced moments of transcendence. And this can be, there's so many different ways. There's really unlimited potential here of what kind of transcendence you can experience. But let's keep it focused just right now on emotional processing, on emotional transcendence. Okay, emotional transcendence. That means you're feeling some kind of feeling. Perhaps you've been feeling this feeling for a long time. Perhaps it's a challenging feeling. Perhaps there's a lot of baggage attached to that feeling, and you're thinking, it's going to take me 500 years to allow the oceanic processes of my Piscean moon to, digest this and dissolve this. You could take that path. And sometimes perhaps that is the path that is best and most effective. That's, that's not up to me. That's up to you and your higher self and, things beyond me. But perhaps sometimes you can skip all that. Perhaps sometimes you can transcend your own emotional baggage. You can even transcend the need for emotional processing. You can just become whatever it is that you want to become. You can simply feel whatever it is that you want to feel. And you can simply heal whatever it is that you want to heal. And the reason this is hard to explain is because explaining requires that there be some type of process. And that's the thing here. There is no process to transcendence. There's no process to transcendence. It is simply something that you be. It's not even something that you do. It is something that you simply be. You be it. You be transcendence. So you feel bad and you don't know how to process. You're feeling bad, right? Simply be feeling good. Simply be in a bliss state of consciousness. Simply be happy. Simply be euphoric. It's a state of being, okay? It's a state of being that cannot be explained because there is no process to it. If there is no process, I can't really describe, I can't really tell you how to do it, right? Other than to say it is something you simply be. Same thing with healing, right? Instead of thinking about the process of healing, what you need to do to heal, That's a very Virgo thing, by the way, and that is the opposite of what you are as a Pisces. The Virgo figures out how to do it. The Virgo figures out the process. The Virgo explains the process, and the Virgo tells other people how to do it. So all of that, if you're trying to go in that direction, just know that that's Virgo energy, and that is the opposite of what you are. Of course, you could be a Pisces moon with a bunch of Virgo placements. You could have your Pisces moon in the 6th house. Wouldn't that be interesting? So it's not necessarily that processes, like you could still have many valuable processes in your life and you could still really value that as an experience. But just know if you got a Pisces moon or a 12th house moon, if you've got a Virgo moon in the 12th house, that's something else too, you know. But for most people who don't have a total overlap of those energies, for those who do have an overlap of the energies, then you're working on balancing this whole axis on a next level type of situation, and that would require its own type of video. But for anyway, right, what I'm trying to say, what I want to focus on here is that if we're just looking at Pisces energy in itself, right? Pisces energy in its purity. Your Pisces or 12th house or Neptunian moon in its kind of purity. There is no steps. There are no steps. There is no process. There is no way of explaining it. You simply be. You simply be. I am happy. I am full of energy. I am healed. I am. I am. I am. And isn't that interesting? Because that I am statement takes us all the way back around to the very end of Pisces, and that is how we translate over back into Aries. So that is the full zodiac conclusion. A full zodiac conclusion. That is the potential of Pisces here. You encompass everything that comes before and everything that comes after. And when you really tune into those highest possible frequencies of Pisces energy, when you master the art of being, when you master the art of being, that's almost, at that point, you've almost transcended the entire zodiac, right? And it no longer even makes any sense to talk about the 12 zodiac signs because you have become the next level. You have transcended to the next level because you became the next level, because you are the next level. So transcendence. Never forget that transcendence is an option for you. You won't find the process or the explanation in your human mind. It is something that you just stand up and you say, I am. I am. I am.